There's nothing, we're not going to bring tanks in here on a pistol range and shoot through our berms. That's never, it's our safety concerns are designed through engineers. They have done many of these ranges all across the U.S. to include some of the military standards. So a lot of this stuff, it's all time-tested measures. It's growing as anything does. The longer we go, the more stuff we learn. So as far as the rounds getting off the range, it is extremely minimal. Thank you.
Shotgun noise. Shoot up in the air.
I'll be happy to address that if you'd like to come up line.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Shamel from Hillsborough. I'm retired, I've been veteran and retired consultant to the chemical industry. And I came up here to retire, so I really enjoy the woods and the peace and quiet. And I'm very concerned about the pollution, especially the noise pollution. But I have a specific question. I've been a consultant for the U.S. EPA and the Department of Justice on Superfund contaminated sites. And it seems to me, and I want to ask you, is there any possibility for any contamination of the land with lead or tungsten or perchlorates that are in the ammunition itself, the propellants? And if so, are you willing to post a bond to make sure there's a cleanup if required? Because according to the statistics, as an entrepreneur, most new businesses fail, and I'd be concerned about an eventual cleanup of the site if the business does eventually go bottom up.
All right, so I'd be happy to address that. The first one I'd like to address is the bond. So as I said, we're continually learning. And I know we kept saying transparency, but there are answers that we don't know. So that is absolutely something we take down, and we can 100% get something back to you. As far as speaking from a personal standpoint, not as Corvus, but all of us can say, you make a mess, you clean it up. We understand that wholeheartedly. So with that, that's why initially from the beginning it wasn't shooting into dirt, it wasn't letting them fly into the mountains or into trees. That's not okay. That's also why the lead abatement program is there. Before rounds go down, we know how they're going to be cleaned up, we know how they're going to do. We understand all of those facts, and like I said, learning as we go, getting the EPA involved, getting lead abatement companies involved, excuse me, and figuring out what we need to do. And we are confident through the people we've talked to that the lead abatement issue, it should be, it's not going to be there. It's literally going to go into a trap, and then we're going to mine it back out. Now with the sporting clays, it's a little different, where you can't shoot that into a trap. Sporting clays wouldn't be sporting clays if you knew where the bird was going to be all the time. So with that, there are other measures in place. And what that usually entails from the industry standard is roughly 3 to 5 years, depending on the volume of fire. Usually every 3 to 5 years, you go through that area, and there's vacuum methods. They're also scraping up and then reconstituting the soil back down, as well as replanting vegetation. That is all part of that lead abatement cycle. So it's not you strip the ground off and now it's bare dirt. Part of that would also go back into, with the vegetation, go back into the conservation program, planting stuff in there that it is easily maintained and facilitates that. You're not going to go back and plant through large growth trees and things like that we have to tear down when 5 years comes along. I know we couldn't answer the bonding question. We'd be happy to get an answer back. Did the rest of those questions, they answered okay for you?
Okay, thank you.
I have a noise issue question, and it has to do with your experts are going to conduct a noise study, and they're going to come up with a decibel number or numbers. Is one of those numbers going to represent a worst case scenario? That is, every shooting lane occupied in warm weather for those of us downwind to the south end in Hillsborough, is there going to be a worst case number? And what happens if in reality, when you go into operation, that you don't meet that number, that instead of 44 decibels, it's 120 decibels?
All right, so noise, absolutely a big complaint, just as well as lead. And both of them, I completely understand. So what we have covered so far is the sound matting, the bunkers, the baffling, all that stuff. So the expert that comes in, I would hope that when they come through there, they give us a worst and best case number and an average number. I mean, that's what we're going to want. We're not going to sit here and stand in front of you and say you're not going to hear it at 10 feet. We want to know exactly what it's going to be, worst case, best case, and an average. So we can put that information out as soon as we get it. So that we we're absolutely hoping to get those numbers from an expert, and that, once again, that's a number we have to push out once we get there. You know, as I said, we have not purchased the land, the surveys, all that stuff. We're still waiting to do, to see how everything goes, so we can be, you know, the best stewards of this land possible. I know you had another question, and I do apologize. I don't remember what it
It was
was.
accountability. What happens if you state a number and in reality the number is higher than what you state?
Okay, accountability. So if we say that it's going to be X amount of decibels, and when it comes down to it, the number goes above and beyond it. So in that case, we would absolutely be willing to go through and figure out some plan to mitigate that noise down to an acceptable level. There's other ways of doing it. You can put the sound deadening matting. Anybody that's seen a recording studio, the little wafers, it almost looks like that, even to a rubber barrier, to try and decrease that noise farther. There's other steps that we can take above and beyond that, and that's also something that when the engineer comes in, the civil engineer comes in, and they do those surveys, they'll be able to say, hey, look, for what you're doing to get it down to this level, we think you need to do this, and that's something that they can provide us. So we will hopefully be able to meet that number. If we don't meet that number, explore options to try and meet that number. Sure.
So again, we're still in the research phase. It's still conceptual. You know, that's why we're here. We're listening to your guys' concerns, and you know the answers we're still waiting to hear back. We're writing down all your specific concerns to get those answers for you. Like at the end of the day, if this isn't a good fit, it's not a good fit. Again, completely conceptual, and we're trying to make sure that this is a good fit. I don't know if it's good or bad or not, but thanks. So all the questions you guys are presenting us, and the questions that we're getting in our emails, we're looking further into it. We have most of the answers. Again, we're still waiting on some surveys. You know, experts in their field. We're waiting to get information back from them, and once we have that, we'll be able to make that information public to you guys, so you do have the answers that you're looking for. The answer about the maximum decibel, it's not a number we would hide from you for any reason. Again, if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it's too bad. Ma'am?
I'm Marion Baker from Hillsborough, and my family's been here for more than 100 years. And we've been protecting the land that all surrounds you, like Thompson Hill, etc., that we open for everybody for hunting, fishing, hiking, etc. And we want to be good neighbors with Bradford, Hillsborough and Bradford. But if, number one, if the majority of the sound is going to be coming on the southern side towards Hillsborough, and especially in the summer, and we have a lot of summer residents in that area, and yet you said you're going to be giving a lot of taxes to Bradford, and you've been ignoring Hillsborough. There's a question there. You know, what about Hillsborough? And the other thing I had a question about.
That one real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah, Hillsborough. In the beginning, when we came up here to Bradford, we came up here to see if it was feasible. The past 3 weeks have been more focused on getting the information out and getting this to you guys. I've talked to a couple of Hillsborough residents. I haven't approached their town hall because there's a lot of questions that are being asked right now that we're not prepared necessarily to present to you, i.e. the architect hasn't got back to us yet with the actual plan. So as far as all the ranges in Bradford and everybody shooting towards Hillsborough, that's not completely accurate. Our architect right now is tasked with identifying the best placement of our facilities on the property to negate noise, preservation of land, and what is best for the overall mission. And the first thing they were tasked with was to make sure that any resources that they use would come directly from the locals. So that, you know, just another avenue for us to push money into the local economy. As far as where the ranges are going to be, we don't know yet. We're still waiting a couple weeks to get the drawings back. We still need to survey. But these are questions that we're absolutely identifying, and then we'll be able to present, here's the layout, this is what it's going to look like, this is the impact, minimal at best, and this is what it's going to mean overall with Corvus and Bradford and Hillsborough.
One quick follow-up, as I look at the cat, when we clapped, thanking you for your Marine service or Army service, that cat took off. And in my experience, being here more than 70 years, when I see any animal around and you hear a gunshot, it's going to move. And I know where the bobcat and the bear dens are on that land. So I'm concerned about, I can't see how you can possibly not affect it. The wild turkeys, they're going everywhere, but
Absolutely. So as we had discussed through working with the National Wild Turkey Federation, as well as other agencies, including State Fish and Wildlife, is all avenues we intend to explore. We've seen there's multiple cases when they're done right all across the U.S. for how to maintain land and animal conservation programs put in place to be strictly adhered to. There's a reason we go out to these people who know way more than we do and have them give us a plan, and they can give us specific numbers and specific things to do. Some of the things that we intend to do for the animals, we absolutely understand. We initially get in there and we start doing the moving things around and setting things up. We completely expect for the animals to run away. We understand it's something new. That can't be helped. But what can be done, and it has been shown in the past from what I have seen, going through and giving them a place where they're not going to be hunted during hunting season all day, every day. People come in and take their entire bag limit out of one property, where they come through, and in some cases you go through and you can clear out the underbrush and allow some of the smaller game. You go through and you provide food plots and other, strictly managed food. So once an animal says, hey, I can come on to this place and I'm relatively safe versus going here or go over there, they're happy. That's a nice place. Now, some of the stuff we absolutely intend to go out and find out better answers. But from the preliminary stuff, and I have a pretty extensive hunting background. I'm not an expert by any means, but I can sit here and say from what I know, proper land management and a quality animal management program is something that is my personal baby. I couldn't do it if I knew that I was going to run every animal off within 500 miles, but that couldn't happen. That is something I can't deal with. But through those programs, we hope we're going to bring all of the animals back and maintain the quality of animals there. So if that means that we open up part of the property and allow people to hunt and have them check in and out with us of what they get, we can also give that feedback to the Fish and Game Department, so they know the age and the quantity of animals that are being taken off there, so it's being responsible stewards of the land. Does that answer your question?
that's what we've been doing. That's why we're concerned about change.
Thank you very much, and thank you for answering our questions today, especially the preliminary kind of layman term sound guidance that you gave, kind of like an idling car 1 mile down the road. My name is Chris Kirsch. I'm on County Road, about 1 mile from the range. So with 50 shooters, that would be about 50 idling cars on my patio, which I'm not too crazy about. Now, my question. I noticed that half of your team is explosive experts, and that you talked about in I think it was at the planning board meeting, about providing forced entry trainings. Now, sometimes those involve, blowing off the door of a building to get in, those kind of things as part of a simulated exercise. Are you planning short-term or long-term to have any explosions as part of a forced entry training or any other trainings up there? Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the question. So I get really excited when people ask education questions because it doesn't come up too much when you're talking about a shooting range. So the forced entry, right? That's for the fire department. We call that using the irons. So it's what we call a Halligan bar and an axe. It's also known as mechanical entry. So it's a way to basically break into a door, to take a door down so you can make entry. For police, fire, EMS, things like that. So that would be what we're aimed at. So let me address the explosives side of the question. So in order to have explosive entry facilities, that requires a tremendous amount of infrastructure in order to contain those types of energetic materials. All right, so we don't have any plans to build those types of houses. The classroom that we're going to be using for indoor training and things like that would just fall over if we tried to do something like that. It's it's a modular, movable wall facility, so nothing like that. It just not in the cards. They are two EOD experts, explosive ordnance guys, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be bringing explosives into the property or using explosives. Our goal is, as stated, a firearms shooting range for education and recreational purposes, and then an education center for that weapons safety portion, the planning portion, planning and operations, and then for the medicine portion. So that is the entire scope of our practice. And someone else said that small businesses fail, and one of the things that we've been talking about is that the reason why a small business fails is that they're like, oh, you know what, we can do this and this over here, and the scope of the project slowly increases as you add on things to it. It's just not manageable. So we understand that. We're taking the advice of people smarter than us in this, and we're keeping our scope small. So the stated intent of the business is all that we're going to be doing. So to answer the question about breaching, mechanical breaching with hand tools. Does that answer it?
Thank you. Yeah.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, thank you. As I understand it, you've all had rather extensive training yourselves, and then you've had military experience putting some of that training to work. But what I'm wondering about is your experience in developing this sort of facility, if any of you have worked with anybody on doing that, or in operating this type of facility. And along those same lines, I appreciate you introducing Attorney Wright, or introducing yourself. And I'm wondering if you could say something about the other professionals that you're working with, the architect and so on, and in the interest of transparency, posting that stuff, keeping us informed as you bring other professionals on board, so that we have some idea of what projects they've worked on and what kind of experience they have, maybe give us the opportunity to look at some of the things they've done. So I just wonder if you can speak to those issues. Thank you.
Sure, I'll absolutely be happy to answer that as best as possible. As we've said, a lot of stuff there's stuff that we don't know that we're trying to need to know, I guess, figure out what that is. So part of that is the architectural side, hiring people in who have done this before. And as we have said, I know there was some concern about not giving out who we're going with, but the reason that we are doing that is not to hide anything or to bring a shady architect in here. They're a well-known architect, and once we do release that information of who they are, it'll be well known. We do not plan on releasing a lot of the names of the companies that we're going to be working with, but they are absolutely industry leaders in civil engineering, in architectural engineering, as well as the conservation side. I mean, most, between land development, the buildings, and all that other stuff. That's about the best answer. I'm sorry I can provide you, but the people that we're bringing in, they know what we're talking about, and we're.
Am I correct that none of you have ever developed this type of facility before?
So there's been concerns that there's other people kind of controlling us, or have we developed facilities elsewhere, or we partnered with even like Blackwater Academy or something, and we're not. It's four of us that truly have a passion with training first responders. We enjoy firearms. Me specifically, I enjoy teaching safety with firearms. It's been kind of a heated debate, but I started teaching my daughter at 3 years old firearm safety. What to do if she goes over to a friend's house and she sees a loaded gun laying around. That's just who we are. That's our passion. There's nobody behind us pulling the strings. I don't personally have any experience with setting up a facility like this, but I will. I have the drive. I have the passion. We all do. And we're going to make this work. We have the experience with training and education. As far as the small business side of the house, we have some mentors in very successful business that have kind of helped or coached us. If we don't know an answer, we find the expert who has the answer. I can't just make something up and slap the table and call it good. We've reached out to entities out there that do know what they're talking about, and those are the people that we've more or less recruited into our mentorship, into an arrangement, if you will, somebody to bounce ideas off of. We're overly passionate about this, we really are. We believe in what we're doing, and that is what has motivated us thus far into developing a small business to be able to provide these services not only to the local and the state, but to anybody out there that wishes to be more knowledgeable on how to handle a firearm. What do I do if I see a loaded firearm? So, do you have something to add? I was done.
Thank you. All right. How many more people in line for the questions? 1, 2. Oh, wow. Okay. So we have 5 minutes left on the clock, but we're going to push it out a little bit further because we really want people to.
have a lot more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we can't stay here until the sun sets, but maybe we should. Yeah. What we can do is we're going to get as many people through as possible, and then when the time comes, we have our contact information, and we are happy to answer questions. The more questions we get, the more we learn about this process. All right, this is a learning process for us. So I'm going to hand it to the next person. So, I'm sorry to steal your thunder. The question was, are we going to post all the questions that we've received today? Well, we are recording our responses. We have a camera over here recording, and I know there are various people in the audience recording as well. So there's going to be lots of records of these questions. And then as we get questions in, we can group them into series of related questions and post a frequently asked questions section on our website, which I think is a great idea that we probably should have done before now that you mention it. So thank you for that idea.
I was curious, watch the, no, you were hooked in the cord. A press release in March, you stated you wanted to align yourselves with the goals of your neighbors. This is a two-part question, but I was wondering who you were referring to as your neighbors and what those goals might be. And then the second part of that question is, I was wondering if you've changed your mission statement before, and if you expect to change it again, and when you've changed it, and when you might change it again.
All right, so the first question was, we said that we wanted to align our goals with those of our neighbors. I think the intent of that statement was to reach out and figure out what you guys need from us. Basically to align what we're doing with what you need in the community, whether that's noise abatement, or if you need road improvement, or if you need training and education. We want to be able to provide a meaningful service to those around us. So and we find ourselves here today. We find ourselves not having purchased anything, not having put in any applications for anything. We are here to show you who we are and talk with you and gather information so that we can align ourselves with what you need. So if you say that you need conservation, we're telling you that we've already considered that. If you need noise abatement, hey, we're on that. All right. So we want to align ourselves and to show you that we really do want to be good neighbors. And then the second question was mission statement, right? All right. So I had this conversation with someone, said, hey, you changed like a bunch of the pictures on the website. What's up with that? What are you hiding? And that's a very interesting question. So 4 guys come from the military, right? 3 of us with extensive active duty backgrounds. As anyone in the military can tell you, we speak differently, we use different words. And so it's been a real education for us in terms of reaching out to the general public and kind of demilitarizing ourselves and becoming citizens. And it is a process, Anyone who's familiar with some of the veterans organizations out there can tell you, it's a process transitioning. And so things that are commonplace to us, things that are normalized for us, are really weird to other people. So yes, we took down the pictures of, helicopters because there was the whole helicopter debate as to whether or not we were actually going to bring in helicopters. No, no, we're not. So that's another fun story for another time. But I actually started the helicopter thing because I'm in a helicopter unit in the National Guard, and I just happen to know a lot about it. But no, we're not bringing in helicopters. Were you excited about the helicopters? Right, and so we were talking about like the fly friendly and all that stuff, and
We're talking about down the line in 4 years, you're gonna have training the National Guard, and you're gonna come in at 500 feet out and drop down so you don't create a noise issue.
I actually have it in transcript.
okay. Yeah, and so that sort of, we're not, like Grace says, we're not trying to hide anything like that. That training area already exists in Franklin. So when I flew with the National Guard, when I was here last year, we would fly up to the Franklin Dam area and do our training in there. And, the area for that sort of training already exists. So it's not a need that we have to fill. It's not in our business plan. We don't plan on making LZs or anything like that. So.
That's what you told us, that's what you said to us, okay? And
Hold on, I think,
So yeah, let's.
I've actually got this is transcribed from the meeting
Can you get the
recording
mic?
of the planning board when you were initially here.
Have them take the
Yeah,
mic.
can I read that? I'll read it out loud, and you guys can follow along just to make sure. So, and this is me talking, so straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Corvus,
I'm sorry?
aren't you Corvus?
I am, yes.
I just wanna make sure.
Yep. So this is me talking at a meeting, and I said once we get to that point in our offerings where we can actually have helicopters coming in, we can actually plot out and map for the aviation guys to avoid certain areas, and that's very much part and parcel as far as what they do in the area. So
the next section says that's what we plan on doing.
I wasn't sure what direction you were going with it as far as training. That's something we'd like to look at in the future. Yeah, absolutely. And so when we first came together, no, hold on. Let me, in context, please. So when we first got together, we were just throwing ideas at the wall. Hey, wouldn't it be neat if? And then we came up to the planning board, and it's kind of reality started dawning on us. No, that's probably not a good idea. And so now here we find ourselves in front of you now, right? So yes, I did talk about helicopters. I talked about the fly-friendly rules and all that. It's not happening. Absolutely not happening. And this goes back to the statement that you said. What does it mean when we align our goals with those of our neighbors? Well, this is exactly what it means. All right. Helicopters, no helicopters. And I understand that concern, and that is not something that we are trying to do, or that we're going to make any spot on the land for. So, kind of a case in point there.
Thank you for bringing that to the forefront. So
Yeah.
hopefully everybody's got that under control.
The helicopter. Well, it was a big issue, and I think the helicopter kind of symbolizes what a lot of people thought Corvus was, which is this kind of dark agency coming into the woods to train, yokels. And it's not. It's just the four of us, and there's no helicopters.
Could you address the mission statement?
The mission statement question. So have we changed our mission statement from the get-go? And train the yokels. Someone's going to quote me on that, aren't they? That's our mission statement. We've just changed it. We're going to train the yokels. No. So the mission statement basically is and has always been somewhere along the lines of we want to bring meaningful training to people. So we have softened language, admittedly, right? So originally we had words like tactics and things like that on the website, and military and things like that. And again, that goes back to four guys in the military speaking with each other. Some things are commonplace, We're not military. We are civilians now, all right? We're transitioning out of the military. Tactics is not really a word that's used in commonplace, and you go to a police department, they don't call them SWAT teams anymore because that's a bad term. The mission is ultimately the same, but we're going to provide meaningful education to the general public and our first responders, and that's kind of been the statement that we've been trying to get out to people, because it's a kind of a common language between four guys coming from our backgrounds and where we would like to be, which is members of the community. Does that answer the question, or do you want me to go deeper into that? Okay, next question.
Paul Murphy. I'm 36 years on Center Road, just off of County Road, so real downrange from you. I'd like to first off thank all four of you for your military service. I really appreciate that. I appreciate virtually nothing else you have, but I appreciate that. With respect to the helicopters, Max, you did say those words, and then you turned to someone saying, do you have something to add? And he's the one who then said, as far as training, that's something we'd like to look to in the future. The offense we take is you then ridiculed us in Facebook, I think through your attorney, and in the media, that there was no helicopter talk. Well, there was. It's on the record. I began to wonder if you guys knew that that was a taped session that you went through, because I couldn't believe that you were saying there was no helicopter talk. That's crap. We take offense to being called liars. There's a lot of people here that have been here a long time. We see you guys as outsiders that have come in with no time. My question is, before the helicopter thing came, have any of you, from a community resource point of view, any one, any two, any three, or any four, taken a look at the petition that we have against you with over 650 people and the comments therein? Have any of you read those and taken that to heart and gotten an idea of what we think of your operation?
So I apologize if it got misconstrued that we were calling you liars. That was never the intent. The idea behind the helicopters was, if we're doing medical training and we're working with EMS on insert extract capabilities, a helicopter is an extract model or modal. Knowing that you guys are oppose having helicopters in and out, we respect that. We modified it. Now, when we came back and said that it was ridiculous that there was Black Hawk involved, because a lot of the information that we were getting from the opposition was that we were going to have Black Hawk helicopters and guys with suppressed weapons moving in every night, and it's going to be constant automatic weapons. And there's been the illusion that we were or are a Black Ops training facility, and that's where the information is correct. In the beginning, we had talked about helicopters. We wanted to train the paramedics and the EMTs that are on some of these birds for first response, for in the event of a casualty. We work on ground extract, air extract. It was a capability we're looking at in the event of a worst case scenario. But it's not guys coming in all blacked out in the middle of the night with assault rifles that are suppressed and doing insert extracts all night. That was our, maybe not you, but it's been put on public social media quite frequently. So that was our argument and counter that no, we're not going to have helicopters. And yes, we did bring it up during a planning meeting as an assessment to see if it was feasible. It's not feasible. We took from the general masses that people were not interested in having helicopters in and out of Bradford constantly. So we redesigned, or not redesigned, but we went back and we modified some of the training requirements that we were going to have for the first responders that we're targeting.
My Corvus question. My petition question.
Yes, we've looked at the petition.
One of you? All of you?
All of us.
Really? So you take that to heart?
We take everything to heart. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't care what you guys thought.
Why are you still here?
I want to thank you very much for coming and listening, and I can tell you that Corvus is listening as well. I know there are other people who have questions. We will indeed answer those questions, not in this public forum because it's time to bring it to a close. We do want to direct you to Corvus's website, and there we will set up a place where the frequently asked questions section will be the starting point. But if you have questions, you can contact these gentlemen by